All right, episode 9 of the Department Podcast. We're back finally after our impromptu week off, not voluntarily, but because I didn't have power for a while because PNG sucks, and you can hear my rant of me bitching and moaning about them in the other wrestling podcast because that happened, and
That's funny. In the wrestling podcast, you said you were going to do it in this one.
Yeah. Well, I have a headache. I don't feel like getting into it, but basically they suck and they have no idea what they're doing. But
that was also the theme of last night's rant.
Yeah, we're supposed to just use them anyway, so we just gotta take it. But how's it going?
Life, sports, podcast. Not bad.
Repeat. Graduation.
Oh, graduation tomorrow. You're right.
Hey,
Yeah.
That's really big stuff.
Yeah, with another weather event coming, so who knows if it even happens. But bright and early, 9 a.m. at the football field.
There's any power, right? If there's
Oh
any
my
power
God.
there.
Do you guys remember, it was like a couple years ago, but there was, it made like national news of like that high school in New Jersey that almost like had the tornado like touch down at their graduation.
Not gonna be us.
Yeah, probably.
That's gonna be us.
That was my
that'll be our college.
That was my end point. But.
Well, now that I'm back in the 21st century, can actually, be aware of what's going on in the world of sports. I guess we should talk about it a little bit. But the major story right now, as when we're recording it, Tuesday afternoon, the Big Ten officially announced that they will not be playing their football season this fall. They hope to play it in the spring. Yeah. Is this the first of many dominoes to fall for the NCAA? Because I feel like they're one of the biggest, if not the biggest conferences, in the country. And if they're the first one to bounce out, I don't see the Pac-12, the ACC trying to then play in the fall still.
Yeah, I don't think – the only problem I think with pushing it back to the spring, though, is college basketball is going to be pissed.
Yeah, there'd be too much going on, if we're being honest, too.
There goes so much of their ratings because people usually jump from college football to college basketball.
But if we're being honest, at the same time, who's actually watching college basketball throughout the season until the tournament?
Until March Madness, true.
At that point, what does it really matter? And the school, but see, it won't matter really too much for the schools because they're making money the same amount. Yeah, the players would be upset because more eyes are going to be on the football team, but the schools don't matter because they're still going to be making that money.
It just sucks for the players, if we're being honest, in general, because almost the whole first round is basically set for the NFL draft. But this is like the season where you could see people stand out or secure a second round pick. Like after the first round, it's very iffy for where people are going to get drafted. So it just sucks for like those like middle of the road players that aren't like the top talents, but aren't like the scum of the earth, but are like right in the middle. It's hard for them.
Yeah, more than ever, there's going to be a focus on the combine and individual workouts, which is not necessarily fair because the combine is who's the best athlete, not necessarily the best football player.
Exactly.
There will undoubtedly be ways to evaluate these players, and if like the Big Ten moving it to the spring, it's not over. For these players. I still probably see a scenario which they get another year of eligibility, but it's such a bad idea to play college football in the fall that I don't really feel bad for the players because they would have to devote 40 possibly hours a week, maybe even more, to a system that's not paying them and put themselves at risk for not just the injury, but also for, now an entire coronavirus pandemic, which is running rampant in a lot of the states where college football is the most prominent.
But see, that's the thing. They can't try to run a season because the players aren't getting compensated or rewarded in any way. I saw a notification before on my phone where they're like, they can give added educational incentives. Like,
oh, cool. You're giving them free credit classes. They already don't go to class.
Exactly. But it's like now with it being in the spring, right? Say, Clemson's conference, they moved to the spring then too. Is Trevor Lawrence really going to play at that point and risk being injured right before the combine? Because those are going to – because if it's the full 10-game season like what they usually play, that would push it right up to the combine, like after the championship game if they do run the playoffs. And then the time frame is so tight at that point, there's very little room for error.
It's not worth it.
matter. It doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
'Cause even if a normal season,
Yeah.
like Trevor Lawrence could have sat out coronavirus or no coronavirus,
And he was going he was going first overall.
Yeah.
I think we're overestimating like how much this season could really affect the draft, having it, not having it. I think if they were to hold next year's draft without a season, we would still see the same, I think, amount of like the same players would go at the same spots because they already do put such a focus on the combine anyway. They already do put such a focus on the interviews and the weight room, and there are drills they can run. There's ways they could see in-game experience, in-game, football IQ without having the entire ensemble go on the field and do it.
And the thing, too, is that film doesn't lie. If a player last year had a fantastic season and they were getting, say this is going to be their junior season, and then they were going to declare, right? They could have, say they regress for whatever reason in this past season, their stock would have went down. Now, if they don't even play next year and they just get ready to train, their stock could stay the same because the film from the year prior didn't change.
True.
Yeah, but it will hurt the players whose film would look better this year as opposed to last year.
Well, that's exactly it.
Let's say a sophomore didn't declare this past year, but he was shaky, a fourth-round pick, but then coming into this year, he was ready to be a full-time starter, could have pushed him to the second round. Does that guy take his chance in college again for his added year, or does he just go in and try to get drafted in whatever round they're projecting him?
It's the same question every single year because the risk this year is just more. It's multiplied
it's
by
substantially higher.
But every year by not declaring as a player, you are always taking that risk anyway.
True.
Of injury, of having a worse performance, and now of risking COVID-19. It's not like there was no risk before. It's not like you're talking about Joe Schmo who didn't declare and then is going back to school and then it's a guarantee because it's never been a guarantee. Of course, you like that's dice that people like to roll, and sometimes it works, Justin Herbert, and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, Sam Darnold hurt his. Granted, he still went, in the top 5, but he stayed his senior year, and it didn't necessarily help him.
Well, I mean, but the best case for a guy who falls behind, like I said, is Matt Barkley, projected top 10 pick, came back. Was not even ever considered a quarterback of the future again, even when he was drafted. He got shipped around from team to team.
So one last thing before we move on. Do you think we see almost a split where we could see the SEC play in the fall still and other conferences move, or do you think everyone will shift at the same time?
I hope
the
not.
SEC seems hell-bent on playing.
The SEC is going to play.
I just don't understand why this is an August 11th conversation when it could have been a May, April, June, July conversation.
Yeah.
They waited way too long, and they had so long.
Football in general is just behind in everything.
Really fumbled the bag.
Yeah. So, while I think college football should mostly be canceled or postponed, however you want to put it, I do think the SEC is going to play, but with them, I'm a little more okay with it if they take all the necessary precautions, because it feels like they will do that because they're the football conference. Like if they're safe with it and they prove that they can do it with players not getting, the virus, I would be okay with it because they put more money and more stock into their football than any other conference, period.
It's such a huge risk. It is
not worth it.
Such a liability, and it's on their hands.
It's not worth it to us, but for those guys that have all that invested into it.
Well, it just goes to prove what college football was always about.
It's always about money.
Yeah. It's always been about the money.
Well, because
if anybody ever thought otherwise, you're about 20 years behind at least.
Because here's the thing. Those colleges, your LSUs, your Alabamas, your Georgias, and so on, the football program generally brings in the most amount of funding for the rest of the entire school.
By far.
For sure.
Far and away.
maybe like the Big Ten schools, they can afford to move it somewhere else because, Big Ten hockey's, relevant. Big Ten basketball is, a thing. But like the SEC outside of football, maybe baseball to an extent, but SEC basketball is irrelevant.
The best time for SEC basketball was when Colin Sexton was at Bama. That's it. Like SEC basketball. Oh, don't forget about that time Missouri got Michael Porter Jr. and he didn't play.
And still was a one and done.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's that. So no, SEC basketball is toss it out the window.
Now,
basketball already is on the decline. It's very safe to say.
Yeah.
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 I mean, we're almost. I think we're a few years out from it being almost obsolete again.
Well, especially the way the G League is trending and the emphasis the NBA is putting on it.
What I'm saying.
Why would you go to college when you can get paid $250K at a starter job to just train and actually learn from NBA guys?
Yep.
So, but within the schools of the SEC, I'm interested to see then, are they holding classes in person or are they online? Because then if they're just literally having the football team to come in and play football while everyone else is at home,
Yeah.
they're clearly school employees then and treating them as such, and they need to be paid or compensated to some way. But with the SEC, they probably already are.
I would bet that they're going to be online, but they're still going to be residents on the campus.
Probably.
What?
I would bet the coaches would tell the players to get fully online classes.
What would their championship in that case? Like, would it just be SEC, and then whoever wins the SEC, that's it?
Well,
and then,
that's the thing. It's like, how does that impact the rankings? How does that impact then the playoff picture? Because
are the rankings just the rankings of the SEC teams?
Yeah, well, if
they're the
that's
only ones playing,
conference playing, yeah.
And then at that point, would they almost then wait to then say every other conference is playing in the spring? Well, then they wait to put the entire playoff in the spring and then bring Alabama back if they.
Alabama would be in terrible shape though unless they were playing games.
But you get what I'm saying though,
where if they absolutely,
if
they would have to bring them back.
And then at that point, you're almost playing 2 football seasons then because you have to play an additional 2 games and get ready then.
That's sick.
They would have to play games before. So
if the NCAA lets any conference who wants to play, and then let everyone who wants to play move to the spring and have a schism of almost like 2 leagues, how the hell do you repair that then?
I think they're going to have to make them move to the spring. I think if 2 or 3 conferences move to the spring, I think you have to make them all because or at least you have to just kind of wipe this year from the history books. There's not a national champion. There's not a Heisman winner person. You got to get rid of those things because teams are playing different seasons.
Because figure if Alabama's the powerhouse that, we expect Alabama to be every year, top 5, top 4 even, say they play their season in the fall, they run the playoffs in the spring, half that team could be rated getting ready to go to the draft. And then they're a shell of themselves, and is it really worth them playing then at that point?
No, it's not. It's just not.
So that's where I feel like the NCAA needs to either have all play or none play in the fall.
Yeah.
And with the Big Ten being the first of major conferences to shift, I think we'll slowly see everyone else move. But college football is supposed to start in like 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, and they need to get their what together and get on the same page.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's too late.
I think if the ACC domino falls, they're going to move everybody to spring. If ACC and SEC stay out and are like, we want to play, the NCAA is going to have a harder time because then you have Clemson, you have Bama, you have LSU, you have all those teams that are still viable.
Yeah.
So just got to wait and see. The first official one was the Big Ten. Who knows when the rest of the conferences are going to come out if they do, but I'd assume it would have to be within the next few weeks if what their decision's going to be.
For sure.
So that'll put a bow on college football. So let's shift over to baseball. Before starting this recording, it came out that Astros coach Alex Cintron and Ramon Laureano, both parts of a big brawl again between the Houston Astros, but not again with the Athletics, but the Astros were, of course, in another fight. Laureano got 6 games. The coach got 20 games. And honestly, Laureano, I understand he kind of went after them, but if you look at it, Cintron was clearly egging him on the whole time to come
The
after him.
whole way.
For sure.
Like, if they want to
Yeah.
suspend Laureano, give him a game and just slap on the wrist and move on. Like, it's clear the Astros are pissed at everyone, and everyone is pissed at the Astros. Like, this is going to happen.
It's frustrating, though, that it seems the MLB is almost siding on the side of the Astros
Always.
every time.
Both
And it's
times.
like, oh,
yeah.
Like, imagine if the NFL did that to the Patriots when they got caught cheating. It was like, oh, you guys we're not going to take away any draft picks. Like, they're clearly favoring the Astros and telling people, hey, don't target this team that cheated. We know you're really mad at them, and we didn't really do anything to them, but don't take it out on them, okay? Because then if you do, we're going to punish you.
Well, and the issue is that because no one in the MLB, they went after the Astros players because they gave them immunity to tell them what happened, because Manfred didn't know how to get the information out of them without going through, because he didn't want to deal with the players union. So now this is almost putting the target on all the Astros back because everyone wants to give them the punishment that they haven't gotten.
Yeah. Can't blame them.
No,
To
I
be
completely
honest.
agree.
I just want to see like the teams that they truly screwed over. Like these teams that they're facing right now are not ones that they honestly screwed over during their whole scandal and all that. I want to see what actually happens when the Yankees come to town. Something like that. That's going to be interesting because there's going to be more fights. There's going to be more suspensions, but you can't egg on a player too, like the coach did, as we saw. The players are already pissed off enough. And you're just adding more gas to the fire at that point. So, yeah.
Moan Laureano was hit 3 separate times throughout the series.
Yeah.
He also
Twice in one game, in that game too, had the fight.
yes, and he was in the Astros farm system, so he knows these people. He knows what's going on the other side. He was a member of the Astros organization for a number of years before he was traded to Oakland. So, if you're talking about guys who were with the team fires Laureano, who walk out of there hating them, what does that say about what's going on, in the clubhouse, up and down that organization, and those guys in that dugout? They are still walking around with the belief that they have done nothing wrong and that they're a victim of the sport of baseball. And that's what's getting people more upset than the cheating. I think if they just cheated and they showed remorse, but they're actively poking the bear, as Justin would say. They're not just letting this whole thing die out. They're still vocal. They're still cocky and arrogant. And you look at the batting averages on those teams, or on that team, and it's obvious that they benefited from cheating.
Well, that's the thing.
You can't even question it at this point.
No.
Like the big four
They went from World Series favorite to their 7-9 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
But the World Series, the core four of like Springer, Altuve, Bregman, and Correa.
Correa's been good this year, but the
other three, they're batting like sub 230.
Horrible.
Like, it's just, I know, Joe, you're not the biggest fan of batting average, but it's clear, that is an indication, though, that something went on.
It's a bad stat. It is a very bad stat. But in this case,
It's telling.
it shows you everything you need to know.
And, this is going to continuously happen this season and probably even well into next year because you're having the rest of the teams in the MLB and the other two divisions who haven't had their shot at the Astros.
Yeah.
And the Astros are going to keep playing into, the bad guy role because they know, other than a few suspensions here and there for a player, that might just take the bullet, nothing else is going to come down and they can get away with they got away with it. So they're fine.
And Astros fans are, if you go on Twitter, man,
They deny it.
They deny it or just defend it and just, well, we still won in 2018. It's like, you cheated.
They
You
cheated.
cheated. Like,
They cheated.
You cheated. And they're like, well, it doesn't have an asterisk, so it doesn't count. Like, we have it.
And
Cry about it.
it's
like,
amazing.
oh, my God, you're so dense.
And it's amazing, too, with MLB suspension. They gave it 2 less for Laureano than Joe Kelly. When Joe Kelly was throwing at the heads of the Astros, that's a different argument, but whatnot. But Kelly was actively trying to hit an Astros player when Laureano just went at the dugout and they gave him 2 less games.
And
when
Laureano was egged on.
yeah,
Literally.
he was, and he didn't even get to throw a punch. He literally got like tackled and speared and brought to the ground before he could even do anything.
Coach went to the dugout. He
They broke
dipped.
the wall around
Oh,
Sinton over there.
he hid behind them.
He had his
Yeah.
bodyguards and he dipped. Just a coward. Just
So,
a coward right there.
I wouldn't be
coward.
surprised though if Laureano appeals the suspension and it doesn't get reduced though.
And are the Astros even saying anything like from top to bottom of that organization, like, we don't condone that behavior, like that?
No, they've just been silent.
No.
They have. Who's their PR department?
Yeah.
Running that PR department? It's got to be the same people running the Trump campaign. It's a disaster.
I think the Astros are handling it a little bit better though.
It's close.
That's saying
Close.
something.
Yeah. So staying in the West though, someone who's been extremely productive is Mike Trout of the Angels, and he is willing his way to carry that team to the playoffs.
Oh, the GOAT. Greatest of all time. Right there.
Mike Trout's the greatest baseball player
Of all time.
and
Thank
there's
you.
not going to be much dispute about that.
No.
The MLB tweets out graphic. Last 162 games, he's hit 58 home runs. Is that real? Imagine where the Angels are without this guy.
They're consistently top 10 lottery draft pick team.
Yeah, no, in the draft lottery.
Yeah.
You would say a top 10 team. I was like,
No.
what
They're
the hell are you
going to be
talking
top.
about?
They'll be top 10 in the draft every year if they don't have.
I
Trout.
dug out two stats for you
Okay.
guys.
Tell me.
Mike Trout has the second highest career stolen base percentage in American history.
Jeez.
Who's he behind? Henderson.
No, Henderson was caught stealing. I'm not
Oh.
sure who was behind.
Okay.
But I mean, the guy is speedy, and he's stolen over 200 bases in his career. That's not. And also, this is a big one. He hasn't had a plate appearance end on the first pitch this entire season so far. The guy is patient. The guy knows the zone.
And he's not even 30.
He's not even 30 yet. It's over.
Yeah,
It's a done deal. I don't know how Aaron Judge is going to win the MVP. I don't know how anyone else is going to win the MVP.
I saw a thing where Trout is on pace to hit 25 home runs this season alone.
That's dirty. People can't even do that in a normal season sometimes. And he's doing it in 80 games.
I don't know how Aaron Judge is going to win the MVP.
If Trout wills the Angels to a playoff spot, which at this point, with everyone getting in, it seems like they could easily get a wild card spot, which they just have to be third in the West then at that point, which they're
Possible.
usually par for the course, which they usually do anyways, third in the West. If he gets them there, he legitimately could be the MVP because Judge is on the best team in baseball. So his overall impact is looked at less important than what Trout is doing for the Angels.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Really, it's going to come down to who hits the most home runs, I think.
Yeah, and that's almost what the MVP awards turned into at some seasons.
Oh, for sure.
Some seasons. Joe's giving me that look. Stan was gifted it because he hit almost 60 home
There
runs.
it is. Okay. I was like, what season are you talking about? But yeah, you're right. Joey Votto actually deserved that MVP.
Yeah.
Stanton.
Speaking of Stanton,
There we go.
back onto the IL with a hamstring. Reports say 3 to 4 weeks, but by Stanton standards, very well could be the rest of the season. So, same old situation in New York with him.
Might as well opt out.
He's not even with the team right now. I heard that he was in Philly, and then they talked about he's somewhere else. I know. I can't do another decade of this hack.
Too bad.
Swinging a bat, running to first base, sliding into second, just playing the outfield.
Which he doesn't even do.
These four things are things that anybody could do without injury. Giancarlo Stanton within the past 2 years have gotten injured doing all four of those things.
Yeah.
Really? Another decade of this? Derek Jeter.
And he even changed his diet and workout regimen to be better for a baseball season.
Ford looks like Peter Griffin out there, and he's fine. He is fine. I'm not asking one to be Dwayne the Rock Stanton out here. You don't gotta do that.
Dwayne the Rock Stanton. Yeah, no, he's that's a horrible contract you guys are stuck with now. I'm sorry. I feel bad.
And he could opt out this year, but there's no point to because he's not going to get the money or the length anywhere else.
He'll just sitting on the injured list and just collect his paycheck, honestly. That's a smart thing to do.
I mean, theoretically, is there any way they could trade that? What would they have to give up?
They would have to
trade that contract.
They would have to send either a really good, highly touted prospect with him for a team to eat the deal, or they send
You
him,
think
and
just one?
well,
Just-
they'd have to send but Jesse, or they could send him to a team, and they would have to eat the entirety of the contract for a player to be named later.
and he has a no trade clause.
So he would have to agree. He would have
You'd have
to,
to agree.
he'd have to agree to the
Oh,
place that where he
Oh,
would want to be
God.
sent to.
God.
So Justin.
well, and if he just
Yeah.
stays with the Yankees, he gets a guaranteed
Well, he
championship ring
forced his way onto
potentially
the
every year.
Yankees because
Yeah.
first of all, he forced the Marlins to trade him, and then second of all,
Marlins,
he would
yeah.
only accept a trade to the Yankees or Dodgers. They had a deal in place with the Cardinals, but he said no. So he
Well, also
forced-
Can't blame him.
San Fran was also on the table too.
yeah, he forced his way here. So
Yeah.
Justin, if the Yankees call the Orioles and say Chris Davis for Giancarlo Stanton
Nope.
straight up, would you do it? I would.
Nope.
I would.
I
do
wouldn't.
It.
I wouldn't, because at least our $30 million contract is off the books in 2 years.
Your hell's over. Yeah, I got.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But see-
you're kind of smart with that
But see,
one.
then we'll have Chris Davis Day till 2040 because they're paying him $5 million a year annually after that.
How about Robinson Cano for Chris Davis?
What's the time frame on the
Same
deals?
thing. It's like 2
Is it-
years.
It's like the same thing.
It's the same deal.
I'd keep Davis still.
The only difference between Cano and Davis is that Cano can play second base too.
And Davis can play a little bit better defensively at first. Cano's also a waste of space, though.
marginally.
Yeah,
So
can't disagree.
we were speaking about the truncated season, right? Charlie Blackmon, though, is hitting around – is he over 400 still?
He's 480s, Justin.
Oh,
If he say he breaks Hornsby's record for the highest batting average, not even Ted Williams, the last guy to hit over 400 in a season.
He's not
If
gonna do that.
if he hits over 400 though, does it stand? Like, is it legitimate?
Yes.
I don't see why not.
You can't do it doing it even in a 60-game sample size is very, very difficult. So
Yeah.
he's going to get the credit that he deserves. And honestly, I poo-poo on batting average, but he's not just like he's hitting really well. Like he's doing,
Yeah.
the slugging percentage is high. The expected batting average on his singles are very high.
Mhm.
His WOBA is through the roof. It's not like he's, just Tony winning Ichiro Suzuki-ing singles in between first and second base. I mean, yes, there's a lot with Charlie Blackmon that I don't love. I'm not a big fan of his game, and I've been very critical of him over the years, especially because of the field he plays at. But if he hits 400, I'm going to give him the respect he deserves.
Yeah.
Tatis?
Tatis.
Would win the MVP.
He could be the NL MVP.
Tatis would still win the MVP, I think.
Very possible.
Okay.
If Blackmon, if they're going to consider all the other stats for this season, and if there's one record-breaking one, you still have to consider it. I think it's like you said, Joe. It's rough in the little amount of games they're playing enough to be over 400, and just they have to count it. It's very
I think
impressive.
almost 700 against left-handed pitching.
Oh my god.
So we got a few more minutes before we take a quick break and then come back and maybe talk a little more baseball, depending on how we get through this. The Cardinals haven't played baseball since July 29th.
Yeah.
And this basically shows how we know how MLB is going to handle a team getting wiped out is basically just quarantine them, and however many games they play, and they'll reschedule it if they can get there. But at this point, the Cardinals, it seems like the two teams that have massive outbreaks, the Marlins and the Cardinals, they've done it to themselves. Players were irresponsible and left. And that's why we see Clevenger and Plesac, in a bad situation with, Cleveland and being, punished a little bit because they left when they were in Chicago. Teams need to be responsible for their players.
Not even that. Players need to be responsible for themselves. Just don't be an idiot. Don't be going out to eat to dinner. Don't be going out to the casinos. You know what you're there to do. You're there to play baseball. You know you're going to be traveling from city to city every week, basically. So just don't be an idiot and just play the game. That's it. You got to make sacrifices.
The Cardinals are done. They're going to have to play, it looks like, 55 games in the span of less than 2 months, 40.
40-something days with, no off days.
That's
And
injuries happening, too.
They're going to be done no matter what. The Reds will have played 19 games before the Cardinals play 6.
It's a
done.
third. I mean, they're already a third way done, and they're just getting started.
Yeah.
They're done. So they're done.
Yeah.
The Cardinals, no matter how you split it, are done. Whatever. I mean, let's go Cubbies.
Let's go Cubbies. Go
So-
Cubs.
Final note, though, we saw Marcus Stroman of the Mets opt out, this kills the Mets season a little bit because they have no pitching now outside of Waka and Porcello, and that's it.
If you would have told me,
That's it. Waka and Porcello. No one else, Justin.
no one else, not
And
like the greatest pitcher in the league. Okay,
There it is.
it's the Mets. What do I expect? All right. If you would have told me a year or two ago that the Mets would be struggling with their pitching and doing decent with their hitting, I would have said you on a crack or something. All right, like it's horrible. It's not even like preventable in a way. It's just injuries that happen to basically almost our entire rotation. And thank God DeGrom's still around. Hopefully he stays around. But it's just it's being a Mets fan. It's literally just being a Mets fan.
Mets offered nothing because we saw, last night he got absolutely shelled.
I turned it off. I didn't see.
The final was 16-2.
I know that, but I didn't.
But look into next year because that's the key with the Mets is always looking to next year for something positive. Porcello's a free agent. Stroman's a free agent. Waka's a free agent. Mats is getting to hit in free agency soon. You literally will have Jacob deGrom and David Pearson and maybe half of Noah Syndergaard for your pitching rotation.
We need to stop giving Mats saying Matt. We got as Mets fans, we like people who are from New York area, of course, but we have to stop doing that to Matt. Enough's enough. Like everyone likes him still just because he's from like Long Island. Like if you're trash, you're trash. Just like
even Matt's ceiling as a pitcher
is a 5
on the level of a guy like Homer Bailey.
I don't disagree.
A back of the rotation sort of guy. He's been a project for way too long. This is the one part of the Stroman situation that makes me giggle a little bit. We're going to look back at this trade. So now, at the end of the day, his tenure with the Mets will be over unless he resigns. But as of right now, it's over. So you will have traded 2 of your top 6 pitching prospects for 11 starts of Marcus Stroman.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna come back
for a third place team last.
I don't think they bring him back.
I think he's gonna come back.
Why would he want to come back?
He loves New York. He loves the area. He's gone out and said this plenty of times.
He said it because he wanted the Yankees to trade for him.
There's a team across the bridge that.
No, you're not wrong.
He hates Cashman now. He hates Cashman.
But no, Stroman will be back. DeGrom will obviously be there. Syndergaard hopefully is healthy, and it's just those last 2 spots that maybe.
Should you guys just shut down DeGrom for the year? I mean, not right now, but soon.
He's not even been performing that well, if we're being honest.
By his standards.
Yeah, just give him the rest then.
I'm used to DeGrom pitching shutouts, 9 strikeout games, 9+ strikeout games. He's been giving up he gave up a bomb the other day. I don't remember the last time DeGrom's given up a bomb like that. It's just an off year. I don't want to blame it on the virus because it happens to the Mets every year, but
it's just so funny though. Looking at Brodie Van Wagenen's too, we're going for it. We're winning now trades. They're blowing up in his face. Edwin Diaz and Robinson Cano, and now Marcus Stroman.
I don't blame him for the Diaz trade, of course, because he was dominant.
At the time, it was the smart move. The smart move, though, was not adding Jared Kelenic, who's going to be the future face of baseball, potentially, for Robinson Cano's $30 million contract.
That is the future face of baseball.
I mean, when you look at the Mets, it reminds you of another New York team. The New York Knicks.
It does.
It's
the colors.
They're all of a sudden like, yes, we're going for it. We're winning now. And it's like, you guys weren't good. Why are you going for win now? That doesn't make any sense. Why are you giving Joakim Noah a 4-year, $72 million contract? Why did you trade for Stroman?
The thing with the Mets and the Knicks, though, is at least the Mets have some potential of younger guys on their roster compared to the Knicks.
Yeah, and then they flip them for older guys, which is also what the Knicks do.
Which is what the Knicks do there.
Andres Jimenez needs to be the starting either second baseman or shortstop.
He's phenomenal. He can do it all.
Second baseman.
Second baseman.
Unless
have Rosario.
still there. There's no real solution.
I'm not sold on Rosario. I think they should move him to either third base or the outfield.
He's got potential.
JD is starting to play third really well again. So
Rosario is the next Marcus Semien. Let's take a break.
All right, yeah, we'll hit the break. We got about
yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts on baseball?
I hate the Mets.
All right, we'll be back when we come back. We'll talk about the NBA in the bubble, not the NHL, because who cares about that?
Rangers, screw the Rangers.
All right, welcome back to the Department Podcast. We talked about some college football before when we started the show, and we went to the MLB, talked about everything that was going on there. But during our little break, when we were recording at least, the Pac-12 officially announced that they are also going to be playing in the spring. So down goes another conference.
Bye.
The Pac-12 was a given. I think they care the least about the Big Five. I think they're the most open-minded out of the five. It just doesn't shock me at all.
No.
It was just bound. It was just bound to happen anyway. So just another domino to fall. But so let's translate over to an actual competent sport that's handling COVID-19 and actually progressing really well. Is the NBA in the bubble down in Orlando? So with that, Jesse, where do you want to start?
I think there's probably only one place to start, and that's the playoff race in the West, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, because it's tight right now. And I mean, playoff race, basically 2 seed through, what would you say, like the 10, 11 seed, I guess? Because they're not making it to the playoffs, but, you know, the 8th seed run is ridiculous. And you have the Rockets, Clippers, Nuggets all vying for position up there, basically 2 through 7. So, and then you have Portland, Phoenix, and, you know, San Antonio balling out essentially, while Memphis can't seem to make anything work, and the Pelicans are really bad.
There might be some tiebreaker games. We might have a couple. Or
Yeah.
are they doing like a tiebreaker from like the regular season?
So I think there's supposed to be a play-in tournament to make it so that there's like no tiebreaker type thing anyway.
Okay, that's cool. That'd be fun.
As of right now, if I had to pick a team that's gonna get in, I would still probably take Memphis just because of the game advantage that they have.
Yeah.
But Portland's scary.
Yeah,
Portland is very scary.
I was always a big fan of Damian Lillard. Still am. A lot of people are starting to like, I don't know, like I feel like people are like losing the hype for him, but I still feel the hype for Damian Lillard.
Well, I feel like
really
people
like
are just almost forgetting about him because he's
that too.
Exiled all the way out in Portland.
Where nothing else is. So, but my main problem with Lillard, the one thing that, and I mean, it's not fair because in today's NBA, most of the great point guards don't play defense, but he doesn't play defense. Not a shred. Not even a little bit. So
I get that.
There can be things you can look at that are a little bit of flaws with his game and the team construction around him, but I don't think you can make an argument that he's any lower than a top 3, top 4 NBA point guard right now.
Absolutely not. And he can get by without playing defense. They hide him better than
they hide him now a little bit better than they did in the regular season. And the worst part is when you have a guy like McCollum next to him who plays even less defense. You're asking for problems. Like, if you need to score 120 points every single game, how viable is that going to be?
I think the Blazers have everything they need. I think they have the veteran leadership. They have the superstars. They have the experience. I think that the Grizzlies, this is a collapse before our very eyes. And I think that you can't bounce back from that. I think it's kind of over for them. They had their moment. And even if they do make the 8th seed, it's going to be embarrassing
Yeah.
in round one.
Oh, it would be really bad for
From a
Memphis.
pure entertainment
I think
standpoint.
they can make it, but they would get swept. They might.
Okay.
Oh my God, I don't even know. They would forfeit a game maybe.
Basically,
It would
whoever gets the 8th seed is going to be cannon fodder for the Lakers.
And it's big. There's a big game tonight, and we're going to see what happens. Dallas, Portland tonight, and I think this is going to be a big decision. This is going to make or break Portland's chances.
Yeah.
I think they win. I really think they win tonight.
And Dallas isn't playing for nothing. They're playing for seeding as well.
Yeah.
So this is a game that it's not like, oh, well, screw it. They can have it. It doesn't really matter to us. That like every game for those teams in the West matters because the seeding is so up in the air.
And that's almost best case scenario what the NBA wanted with bringing in basically all of the West was to have this come down to the wire. The East was sorted out in about a matter of 5 minutes once we learned that the Nets can actually still play and the Wizards are officially the worst G League team in the league. That kind of sorted the East out in itself while the West is still – it's going to go to the 8th game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt there.
But speaking on the Nets too, it's amazing how well they're actually playing still.
Yeah.
But beating legitimate teams in the process of it.
The legitimate teams.
The top teams.
It's whatever. I mean, you can't put any stock into it. These guys aren't even going to be playing and wouldn't have been playing.
You put stock into Jacques Vaughn, though.
Absolutely.
You have to. If Jacques Vaughn is not the coach of the Nets next year, which I think right now the only potential coach that could maybe find a way to the Nets that I would take over Jacques Vaughn is Greg Popovich. And if Popovich isn't coming, then you don't. Why would you get rid of Vaughn?
I agree. I don't think
that's
you
the thing, though, too. It's like, who's the best option available? Your best option available is the coach you just fired.
Yeah.
That's the only other head coach that's out there that's viable for a team is Kenny Atkinson.
I mean, some people say Stan and Jeff Van Gundy if they both, wanted to get back into coaching. Mark Jackson. Oh God,
the ship needs to sail on Mark Jackson. There is a reason why he hasn't gotten a job in a long time.
Yes, but he still gets interviews, which is what scares me.
Oh, it's possible. It's very possible, I think.
For whatever reason, players like Mark Jackson, but they shouldn't.
I think if they go to 6 against Toronto, Jock is seriously considered.
They can get swept by Toronto, and I think you have to make Jacques Vaughn the coach.
So he's your boy now? He's your guy?
I think he has to be. I mean, they're competing in every game. This was a team that quite literally everybody, myself included, a Nets fan, wrote off because no Kevin Durant, no Kyrie Irving, no Spencer Dinwiddie, no DeAndre Jordan. I mean, they've signed Michael Beasley, and he couldn't even get onto the team.
Michael Beasley.
So, I mean, and then coming into the tournament, don't get me wrong, I think Kenny Atkinson is a good coach. But coming into the tournament, the bubble.
It's a tournament. Let's be honest.
LeVert looked good, but not fantastic.
No.
Jared Allen looked like a shell of what he was capable of being, and Joe Harris was settling for only 3-pointers and never driving.
Yeah.
Jacques Vaughn has changed all of those things. Jared Allen looks like a starting caliber center again in the NBA. That's a trade piece if they want to move it, which they're probably going to. Karis LeVert looks like he would be an incredible third star with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, and then would be able to play even tighter defense, shelling less of the offensive load. And if not, and they decide to go third star, trading away Karis, his trade value's got to be through the roof right now. And then you look at Joe Harris going into free agency, he's most likely going to resign, but he's probably made himself even a little bit more money with the stuff that he's been doing. And then you add in these younger guys that are playing, And Jeremiah Martin is going – I don't think he's going to be on the Nets, but he is going to be on an active roster next year. He is a great two-way player. I mean, the list goes on and on of these guys that are playing hard for Jacques Vaughn. Jamal Crawford, who is hurt right now, but has been in the NBA forever, he's singing Jacques Vaughn's praises and saying players love to play for him. And Dinwiddie went on Twitter and also said players really like Vaughn. So unless they already have an agreement with another coach that they just haven't made public yet, I don't see any argument for any coaches that are out there that can be higher than Vaughn. He's known by the organization. The players like him. He's already been in the system.
Yeah, and at this point, though, they at least owe him to give him a portion, if not next season, with an actual roster.
No, either
really
to him. You don't just give him some of next. Like next year is the win year. Next year is the
It
year.
is the win year.
You're not going to fire a coach mid-year next season under no circumstances. Whoever they hire is going to be.
The only way they could do that is if they steal an assistant from another team that could take over mid-year, like a Tyronn Lue, or
isn't that what the Cavs did with Lue and
Jason Kidd, Vogel?
Yes, Blatt and Lue. But if they steal Alvin Gentry if he gets fired, something like that, or Jason Kidd, but I don't see it. I don't see it going that way. I think Vaughn either gets it completely or they go a different way and Vaughn probably becomes a head coach somewhere else.
I think he gets it.
I think as of right now, I think he gets it. I think the players like him too much.
But if next year doesn't work out, which it has no excuse not to work out, then
see the current players like him. The important players we don't know yet.
We don't know yet. That's a good point too. Yeah.
We know Dinwiddie. We know Dinwiddie likes him. We know LeVert likes him, and we know Allen likes him.
But there's there's two other names that override all three of those guys.
I absolutely agree. But LeVert and Durant have a terrific relationship. So if LeVert's telling Durant we should, keep this guy, I think that has some weight to it, especially if Dinwiddie's going to stay as well. If they run it back again and don't make trades this year and keep the team with the core, which as of right now, the way they're playing under Vaughn, that's probably what I would be leaning to.
Dirty team. That's a dirty team right there.
I think you have to move forward with that right now because what players if you concoct a trade of Dinwiddie, Allen, Philly's first round pick, and maybe another pick. What's the best player that's going to get you? That's going to work with those contracts. I really couldn't even think of one. You might as well just keep. Essentially, with a full roster, they have 7 to 8 players that could be starters.
Yeah.
So their bench unit is going to consist of at least 3 starter caliber players.
And it'll be interesting if they do make that move for a third star. Bradley Beal has been linked there for a little bit now. But who knows if they even decide to pull that trigger.
That you can't trade for Bradley Beal and keep Karis LeVert.
Yeah.
No.
Because you can't play – like we've seen in the bubble, LeVert has said he's playing more point guard than ever right now. And he's at his most comfortable. Which, surprise, surprise, that's what he was doing a year ago when he got hurt when, D'Angelo Russell took over. But he was playing a lot of distributing, playmaking guard then and doing it now, and it's clearly where he is at his best. So as a secondary ball handler to Kyrie Irving, that ceiling is through the roof. You can't move him to the small forward spot, but you also can't move Bradley Beal to the small forward spot because he doesn't play defense.
Yeah.
So
and then you're just playing an undersized lineup then at that point.
Yeah, and if you decide to keep Dinwiddie over LeVert after what you're seeing in the bubble, I would question the front office then at that point.
Yeah. So speaking of a team's core that's in question, and Jesse, you've been very vocal about this team, is the Philadelphia 76ers. Ben Simmons is out for the year. Joel Embiid looking to go that way also, basically, with his ankle injury, I believe. Is it time for them to go back to the drawing board almost?
No,
So
I'd say no. It's just this. It's just injuries. It happens. It's sports. They're to get a
But-
first round exit, but that it happens.
but what
But this team
is
started.
Philly a championship team? Do you think Philly's a championship team?
But Clark, you also
I would
said.
say no.
But Clark, you also said this team deals with injuries. They started this team based off of injuries with Simmons and Embiid.
Yeah,
Both of these guys have been injury ridden.
I know. No, you're right about that, but I just don't think two of the upper players in the league. You don't give up on a team with two of these guys on your team. They need another piece, I think. Still,
No. See, that's the thing. I agree with you there.
yeah,
I agree. You should not give up on two of the top
top.
tier players in the league. And, Embiid and Simmons are unquestionably that.
Yeah.
But the team they have put around them
That's the problem.
doesn't work. Okay, so we acknowledge that's the problem,
That's
right?
the problem. Yes.
They have absolutely no way to reconstruct that team to make it any better. Their first-round picks have already been traded. Their young assets, there are none.
Then what do you do? Ship out Embiid?
You have to ship out one
One
of
of them.
Embiid or Simmons, because unless this is a championship team right now,
Yeah.
it's not going to be next year, because guess who has their first-round pick? Brooklyn.
Yeah. I
They
think
don't have anything.
you ought to keep Embiid if that's the case then, because I'd rather have Embiid over Simmons any day of the
Embiid
week.
can actually stretch the floor, though. Simmons still can't.
But
Well, and
that's why you keep Embiid.
Embiid only stretches the floor because he has to, because
Simmons is
Simmons
clogged.
can't space the floor.
Yeah,
He's a
I agree.
disaster on offense.
It-
I don't care how great of a passer he is. In this offense, in this scheme right now, it's dumb.
It can't work.
It can't happen. Good for Embiid. He's really adjusted his game, I think, to complement Simmons the best that he possibly is good. But you pair Embiid. If you look at what Dallas has going and in the future, they could build their team in a similar way to that. They have to get rid of Simmons and get someone more like a Luka Doncic.
The problem is so they both have injury problems.
Yeah.
I would say Embiid mostly has more injury problems.
But which big duo, superstar, big three, big two, doesn't have at least one injury-prone player?
That's
Yeah.
true, because you look at the
Maybe Houston.
because even you look at the
Yeah,
you look at the Lakers. Davis definitely goes down more than LeBron. Look at the Clippers. Paul George.
Okay, but this is the difference though. Those guys get banged up, right? They get hurt, they sit games, they miss 20 games a year, all that. When Simmons and Embiid go down,
It's
out.
they're out. They're done.
Yeah.
It's over. And it always seems like those guys get injured towards the end of the year or
When they need him most.
when they need them the most, when they're going through some stretch. These guys get hurt. They're injury riddled players. I would say Kyrie Irving's a player that would be, injury prone in the Nets duo. But besides the 1 year with the Cavs where he tore his ACL, banged his knee up,
He's been primarily.
he's been in, he's missed time. He gets nicked up, but they're not these serious injuries. And at this point, every injury with Embiid and Simmons is serious, because every injury that Embiid shoulders, you have to wonder how much that shortens his career, because he already came into the league with issues. And the center drop-off it's not, you don't see it coming. It is immense.
Mhm.
It is one year, they're really good, and the next year, they're really not good.
That's
Mhm.
why.
Al Horford literally this year.
Well, that's why Jokic, he's been at his top for what 3-4 years now almost.
Yeah. Three at
Jokic,
least.
I would say probably. Well, he's been progressively getting better though.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's plateaued yet. As good as Embiid is, and as he keeps getting better, it's like it's sort of a plateau thing with Embiid because he's already added so much to his game that it's like, okay, what more can you really get better at? Because he's you can't put him lower than the top 3 center. I would put him at number 1. And then you have Jokic and Towns.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't ask anything more of Embiid. So how much can that affect his body
And the thing
moving forward?
Going back to you, Jesse, like when they're down and out, it's always lower leg injuries too. Ankle, foot, leg, hip.
Yeah.
And for big men specifically, that like Greg Oden, that literally ended his career was because of the constant lower body injuries. And for Embiid, who's a 7-footer, you need that. Look at Yao; it cut his career severely short.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, at this point, as much as you shouldn't ship out young talent, they've painted themselves into a corner. They have nowhere else to go. There's no young assets on that roster. The one young asset they had was Zaire Smith, and he hasn't played. He doesn't really do anything. They have Tybal, but you don't want to get rid of him. So, you lost J.J. Redick, you lost Jimmy Butler, you brought in Tobias Harris, you brought in Al Horford, and you dug in on those guys. It's your bed. You got to lay in it. And sadly, that's not a championship team.
And at that point now, their only other option is just keep trying to run them out there and see what happens, or move on one of them, or completely blow it up and start from square one again. And if that's the case, then the process failed.
Well, and the only 2 players that have positive value are Embiid and Simmons and Tybal. Or excuse me, the 3. Tybal isn't going to get you back anything that substantial. He's not getting you a 3rd star. They don't have anything to package to acquire a 3rd player. The package that they gave up for Jimmy Butler, that, they let him walk. But they've already made their trades. They've dealt those assets. J.J. Redick left. You didn't replace him with anybody.
They should have kept on J.J. Redick instead of signing Horford.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I would argue they should have done everything in their power to keep Jimmy first.
Yeah.
And then if
I know
Jimmy
that.
wasn't staying, you do Tobias.
Yeah.
But that
Horford was
Horford
not-
contract,
Is not needed.
the thing was about Horford too, was they weren't signing Horford so they had him. They were signing him so that he wasn't on any other team.
They were trying to get him away from Boston because they thought they were the immediate threat.
They thought they were the threat, and Horford has played well on Giannis in the past, as well as somebody can. So they thought, okay, we're stopping Horford from playing against Embiid because Embiid usually underperformed against him. And, now we have this guy for Giannis too. Oh, wait, how does he start? How do we play him? Because if he's coming off the bench and Embiid is taking 36 minutes a night, Horford's getting 12 minutes. Because you can't play them together.
Yeah, it just
The
doesn't
roster
work.
construction
It just
didn't
doesn't work. It just doesn't work. They have too many of the same positions almost at some point.
Their best bet was with Jimmy Butler. They lost to the Raptors on that Kawhi shot. Jimmy Butler left.
And that's it.
It's it. Like, Embiid and Simmons are young, so you shouldn't have to rebuild like that by trading one of them. But congratulations, the 76ers, you did it. You gave out so many bad contracts and traded away a bunch of assets that all of your players, you're stuck. I mean, Tobias, if you trade Tobias, you're going to need to give up something because his money's huge. Al Horford, you're going to give up something substantial. You would literally need to attach first-round picks to Horford.
Yeah. And speaking of the guy that got away, Jimmy Butler, he's living it up down in Miami. He's got a little beef going on with TJ Warren, and he won the first round of it last night.
I don't see no beef. I just saw a team shut down the best player in the bubble, or second best, honestly, because Booker's the best player in the bubble. But
Oh, Luka Doncic also wants to have a talk.
Doncic too, I'll give you that.
Giannis also maybe wants to have a talk.
That too, but yeah, shut down TJ Warren. There's no feud here. He's not on Jimmy's level. Plain and simple. That's it. That's all I have to say about that.
For the bragging point on behalf of Jimmy Butler to be that he's better than TJ Warren is a little embarrassing at this point.
Well, because TJ's talking all this stuff too, and he's just telling TJ he's not on his level, and that's it. That's all it was, and he blew him a kiss. That's all there is to it. While TJ was flipping him off, doing all these vulgar things, Jimmy just blew him a kiss and said he's not on his level. That's it. And that's it. And they want to talk about this TJ Warren guy who's the Michael Jordan of the bubble. He scored 12 points last night. He didn't score anything in the second half. Like, there's nothing here.
I mean, TJ Warren was pretty impressive. I
He
mean,
was doing good.
to say he's on Butler's level, obviously you can't unless he does that for a season. But nobody was thinking he was going to average 35.
Oh, of course
for a
not.
full
No,
season.
he had a good stretch of games. Give him that. But comparing him to being the Michael Jordan of the bubble, like,
Is a joke.
Well,
get the hell
okay,
out of here.
let's also take it a little easy on TJ Warren because I would say the Pacers are the weakest team in the East right now.
Washington.
I mean, okay, well, they're not. They don't count.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about them.
Playoff teams.
Yeah,
Um,
I got that same tweet from about 9 people, including you, Jesse, where it's like the Wizards really went down to Orlando for 6 weeks of cardio. Thank you.
Well, they did. I mean, okay.
They
I'll
did.
say this. Let's be a little bit more fair. Beal wasn't there. They kind of never expected.
No.
Yeah.
Did you
Like,
expect
Brooklyn needed to win like one game,
I expected us to win the Brooklyn game, and that was about it.
and once they lost that, it was over.
Oh, I knew we weren't
By
winning
far.
anything.
Yeah.
So
Who else do they have to play? That's my question.
but
I gotta look at the
Indy-
schedule.
Indy is probably the worst team in the bubble, besides maybe Orlando.
Oh yeah, they're losing everything. They got the Bucks and the Celtics left, so yeah, they're losing.
Oh, yeah, you guys are-
They're
you
going.
guys
But
Just play your G League guys, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Indy-
no, yeah.
Indy
No.
has such a weird roster creation. They're clearly the least talented.
They're
They're way
relatively
less
the worst.
talented than Miami.
Oladipo's leaving too, so that's gonna be bad for them.
That
next
actually might be good for them.
year.
they don't
I
need
like
to pay.
Oladipo.
Yeah, me too, but he's not. Oladipo is one of those guys that is a really good player, but you should never give him max money.
Max,
And
yeah.
he's going to want max money.
He's
and
gonna
you-
want Max.
You don't do that.
No.
And most teams in a small market do because they don't want to lose their guy. Utah's going to do it with Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell, I'm sorry, he's not a max player eventually. Like, at the end of the day, he's not.
I agree. No,
A
I agree.
42% shooting guard is not your best player. And coming off the injury, Oladipo's hasn't looked like himself, but he's still going to want that money.
Yeah, no, he hasn't looked the same. I agree, because that injury is a big question mark too. If any future injuries to come along with him as well, you don't know that. But I do agree the Pacers are towards the bottom of the East with their lineup, probably up there with the Sixers, honestly too. Because we were just talking about the Sixers the last half hour or so, but if you talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
So real quick before we wrap, the NBA wants to give out bubble awards, basically.
I love it.
Do it. I love it.
I love it.
Now, is this impacting then the regular season like MVP awards, or is it just for the seeding games? I
It's
think
for fun. I think.
I think it's just for
something.
seeding.
it's literally like the summer camp awards then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have him get into like a little auditorium, have TJ Warren come up for his most improved bubble player.
Oh, for sure, most
Have
improved.
Devin Booker or Luca come up for the bubble MVP. Jock Vaughn gets coach of the year.
Are they doing like a 6-man bubble or something too? Are they doing like all the awards like they
Might
usually
as well
do?
just give it to Lou Will.
Might
I
as-
have no idea. Just give it to him anyway, just because
The bubble rookie of the year.
here. Oh, that's definitely got to go to Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
Or Bol, but no. Michael Porter
Bubble
Jr.
had like a good game.
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. has looked fantastic in the bubble. Even
Yeah.
though he sort of believes Corona's like a hoax or something, I don't know. But
And he also said not aware of the political statement he said a while ago.
but he can pull up from 3, so
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Any last thoughts before we wrap?
Got nothing.
Nah.
Trying to think. So I'll say this, right?
All right.
For the Lakers' struggles,
Oof.
why are people not on the Clippers for their struggles? Because everywhere I look, it's Lakers are last in three-point percentage. Lakers are last in free throw percentage. Lakers are last in this. They don't care. They have the 1 seed locked.
They're
The
chilling.
Clippers can fall to the 6 seed.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, doesn't matter.
I think it's
Doesn't
just
matter.
because it's LeBron James, so the magnifying glass is still on him, even though they locked it up like 2 weeks ago and they haven't had to do anything.
The Clippers right now, while they are so insanely talented, by far I would say the most talented team in the league, they, in their current form, are not a championship level team.
No,
They play with absolutely no chemistry.
that's the problem.
They
Yeah.
are still load managing when they still don't know what to do when Kawhi or Paul George are not on the floor. They don't know.
And which is bizarre because, I mean, you have the perfect coach. I feel like they have one of the, best coaches in the league for this situation. But honestly, I would feel more confident going into the playoffs with last year's Clippers than this year's Clippers. At least as confident because right now, Paul George, yeah.
What didn't even play
Meh.
past couple of games.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, we don't really know what we're going to get from these guys. But I think the Lakers are a big question mark as well. Like, it's not like either of these teams are locks. Like, neither of them are the Warriors. From
Yeah.
2
Yeah,
years
and
ago.
their teams. I think this is the deepest the West has been. Everybody always talks about how deep the West
is usually
but
deep.
this is the year
'Cause
1 through I would say 7 or
all
6
contenders.
are all contenders.
I agree.
Houston's
100.
real. Houston's
Every
real.
single one of them.
I agree. Easily agree.
I mean, what team do you want to match up with in the first round? What's the lowest seed? Houston. Well, besides the 8th, you want Denver, you want OKC, you want Houston, or you want Dallas? I don't want any of those teams.
No.
I don't want to face any of them.
Bring on Utah.
Utah?
Oh God, Utah. Yeah.
Utah.
Well, but Utah also can click together in an instant out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So they can be scary too. I would say maybe the weakest team is Oklahoma City, and they're the smartest and most clutch team in the league.
There it is. Yeah.
So if they're close playing you at the end, they lead the league in clutch points.
There you go.
Chris Paul in clutch time is plus 13.
Teams that have the most, I think the biggest blow up in your face potential is, out of all those teams, probably Denver. I think that
Denver's possible. As much as I think it does work, Houston can definitely blow up if who would stop if they get the Lakers in the second round, they would destroy them. Anthony Davis would put up 35 the whole series easily. I mean, it wouldn't even be a contest. The Rockets' best bet is to try to get the Clippers in the second round because they at least match up well with the Clippers.
Yeah.
But that's their best bet. And then you look over at the East side, and you're like, why did Kawhi leave Toronto?
Toronto's still good though too.
Pascal Siakam guy is better than Paul George.
They haven't skipped a beat.
No,
not at all.
They don't get talked about enough either.
If Milwaukee doesn't make it in the East, the only other team that would is Toronto. And I hope unless Jason Tatum becomes the 30-point per game scorer, I don't see anybody else in the East competing with Milwaukee.
That's my number one too. I agree.
And then at number 2 it's Toronto. And
that's
if they had a star player, just a superstar player, they'd win
another ring.
Yeah. If they got past Milwaukee, they would probably be my favorite in the championship.
Mine too.
I don't see, like, they're not a superstar away from being better than Milwaukee. I think that's taking a lot of credit away from what Milwaukee's doing. Like, I think
okay. Let's also say if Giannis wasn't MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, it'd be a little bit easier to get through Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But Milwaukee's one of the greatest teams I can remember ever seeing.
It's a complete team. It's not Giannis.
They do everything well.
That being said, when the playoffs start, they need to start playing defense again. I'm not that worried about it right now because they already have the 1 seed locked up. They have 2 Defensive Player of the Year candidates in Giannis and Brook Lopez. Eric Bledsoe is a bulldog and can lock anybody up from the perimeter. They have 3 prime defenders, so I'm not that worried. But you got to eventually start playing defense.
Yeah. But they've basically had the 1 seed locked up since they got to the bubble. And playoffs, they start this weekend, right? I think. Or
early next week.
Or at least we'll know what the playoff bracket will look like. But, Clark, you know what time it is.
Huh? Oh, we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, baby. Wow. That went kind of quick, actually.
Yeah, we're done in the early afternoon for once.
I did not see that timer up there either. Wow. All right. So, thank you, everyone, for listening to the Department Podcast. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at the Department P1. Follow us on Instagram at _Department_podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Put on your notifications for us on YouTube. Like I said in the wrestling show, it's free to subscribe. I think Justin said it best, or Jesse. It's free to subscribe. Help us out. Pat our stats, like they said. But we're not only on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on all your favorite podcast apps. So subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. Leave a review. It helps us get up in the rankings when you search the Department Podcast. So thank you for listening, though, and we'll see you in the next show.